Our episode begins with Shin's friends traveling. They encountered bandits who tried to raid the carriage for the church's goods, but the bandits weren't aware of its contents. They attacked us without knowing what to take, or maybe they planned to kill us and quickly escape with the cargo. At that moment, Shin recalls a previous conversation where a church member told him that the sisters needed an official permit from the central church to appoint the next head of the church. Was someone trying to prevent this? Returning to the present, Shin talks to himself, thinking that it might just be a coincidence, but he feels that escorting this carriage was the right choice. The scene shifts to when the carriage finally arrives at the city of Baran. The driver thanks them for protecting the carriage from the bandits and hands them 4 documents, informing them that these are the mission completion documents. Take them to the guild, he says. They take the documents, and he tells them he will hire them again whenever he needs their services. The scene changes to when they finally reach the Adventurers Guild. Shin asks what they should do now. Mr. Dragon tells him that they are heading directly to Kilmonte, which is a completely different direction from Shin's path since Shin and Tierra are going to Farned. Mr. Dragon expresses his confidence that they will meet again if fate allows it. Then they part ways. Shin then talks to Tierra, asking if they should continue their journey in another carriage. It seems Shin enjoys riding in cars because they are somewhat comfortable, but Tierra doesn't like it much because it hurts her back. Shin starts thinking about how Farned is still far away and how they will spend a lot of time traveling together. So there is no harm in owning a carriage. The scene shifts to a place where cars are sold. All of them look similar, but maybe they should customize one to their liking. He wants to modify it to reduce vibration and improve the wheel movement like a Mercedes car. Tierra asks, how will this car fly in the sky? Shin laughs and says not to that extent, but it's a good idea to make a flying car in the future. They continued searching for a large vehicle that would allow them to sleep inside. Eventually, they found a big car with ample space for luggage and ready to accommodate additional people if needed. Shin signaled the seller and told him they wanted to buy that car. The seller replied, "Okay, sir, but have you bought horses before?" Shin said no, so the seller offered a small piece of advice. It's best to get horses with strong legs to pull such a carriage. It's too heavy for a single horse, he added. Shin responded, "All right, my friend. But I heard rumors about people using beasts to pull their carriages." The seller confirmed, "Yes, that's true. Beasts are much stronger than horses, but you'll need to tame one first. Be careful not to be tricked by others." Shin thanked him and left. At that moment, he received a telepathic call from his friend Shini. She had finished all her work in the kingdom and asked where they were. He told her they had just bought a carriage in Baron and now needed to find horses to pull it. Shiny suggested that she could catch a beast to pull the carriage instead. She told him she would arrive in Baron within a few days and asked them to wait for her there. She also mentioned that the castle was very worried about the sudden disappearance of the moon shrine. Everyone looked pale and shocked by this. They had been watching her and wanted to recruit her. Shin told her, "You are very strong, and I'm sure any city or kingdom looking to strengthen its army would want you in their ranks. You are the strongest of all." She agreed, adding that some people had even tried to forcefully recruit her and that some had offered her marriage. Then she asked Shin if he felt jealous for her. He replied, "Why do you ask that?" She told him it was because it seemed to show on his face. Shiny asked Shin to inform her as soon as they found an inn. Tierra purchased her necessities, and when they finished shopping, Shin suggested they stroll around to enjoy the natural scenery while searching for an inn. A shopkeeper asked if they were from out of town, and upon learning they hadn't found an inn yet, offered to guide them to a good place. The shopkeeper directed them to a beautiful inn that seemed quite expensive. They were amazed by its elegance but worried about the cost. They entered the inn and booked their rooms, surprised to have spent half of their reward on such luxurious accommodations. The inn was indeed very fancy, assuming that adventurers could afford its rates, and it was famous in Baran, which wasn't a bad thing to experience occasionally. When Shin entered his room, he found it exceptionally luxurious. Yuzuha transformed into her human form and happily lay on the soft bed. Shin checked the time and saw that there was still a lot of time before dinner, so he decided to go work on his weapons. While he was sharpening his weapons, Tiara joined him and asked if he had informed her teacher that they would be staying in this town. He reassured her that he had, and that her teacher said she would arrive in Baron tomorrow, though he didn't know exactly when. They then sat down to have their dinner. After finishing dinner, Tiara decided to take a quick bath and go straight to bed. Yuzuha asked to join her, and they went to bathe together while Shin continued working on his weapons. The scene then shifts to Shiny facing a giant beast. She intended to tame it for her friend Shin. Early the next morning, we see Shin in his room getting ready to work on the carriage while waiting for Shiny to arrive. Tiara asked him what he planned to do next. He told her he was curious to see the modifications Shin would make to the carriage. Shin examined the carriage and decided to start by changing the axles. He thought that adding a spring would reduce the vibrations, which would be sufficient. Now he just needed to add the bearings. Yuzuha asked Shin about the bearings, thinking they might be easy-to-fold equipment. Shin explained that they were part of his metalworking skills, adapted for their specific use. Tiara was astonished by how quickly he finished the work, as such modifications usually took a long time. Shin told her he didn't want to attract attention, so he would install the bearings in a more conventional way. At that moment, Shine contacted him, informing him that she was in the forest behind the northern gate. Shin decided they should head there immediately. He told Tiara that Shini had arrived, so they needed to finish up and go meet her as quickly as possible. After completing the work, they headed into the forest to find Shini. Yuzuha sensed something ahead and informed them. Shin asked her to wait a moment, reassuring her that they would see for themselves once they reached the spot. Shin and Tiara went to the forest to meet Shiny and the beast she had tamed. When they saw the creature, they were astonished by its size and appearance. Shin identified the beast as a Grovagio, mentioning that the typical maximum level for such a beast is 650, but its unique horns suggested it was special. Shiny greeted them, saying, "I've returned and brought a beast to pull the carriage. This one will handle the job without any problems. I got it from the nearby sacred mountain." Shin thanked her, saying, "You're always doing more than what's required of you, as usual." Tiara, however, was scared of the beast. Shin reassured her, saying, "It likes you. You're beloved by children, so maybe it's the friendly type. Now that it's here, it's one of us." Shin then asked Shini why she chose this particular beast. She replied that since the goal was to pull a carriage, it needed to be a beast of the sacred variety. Shin commented on the beast's large size, wondering what kind of carriage she had in mind. Shiny commanded the beast to shrink, surprising Shin and Tiara. "It has this ability," Shin exclaimed. Shiny nodded, adding, "It can also become much smaller, which will be very convenient when we stay at inns." Shin agreed, saying, "This size is perfect. It was already intimidating enough to make people faint, but I never expected you to bring such a high-level beast." Tiara told Shiny that no one would usually think of using a sacred beast to pull a carriage. Shiny felt sad, thinking they didn't like the beast, but Shin reassured her, saying, "I'm thrilled to have such an amazing beast to pull our carriage." He then asked for the beast's name, and Shiny replied, "His name is Waymed. He can use illusion, magic, and lightning skills." Shiny then instructed Wayme to behave well in front of Shin. The scene transitioned to them in the carriage, with Shin asking Wayme to take them to their first destination, Farned, to visit an old friend named Gerard. As Wayme set off, Shin was very pleased, saying, "I modified the carriage to avoid attracting too much attention, but we're doing the exact opposite now." Shiny remarked, "It's even better than a royal carriage. I've ridden in one before, and it wasn't this comfortable." Meanwhile, Yuzuha was conversing with Wamed. Shin asked what they were talking about, and Yuzuha explained Wamed's parents ruled the sacred mountain, but an adventurer defeated his mother. Wamed barely escaped with his life, running as fast as he could, and was saved by an elf girl. He worked hard to become stronger and returned to the sacred mountain. He followed you because your scent was familiar to him. Shin thought to himself, embarrassed to admit, "I've done similar things in the game." He made mention that it was Tiara's scent he recognized, which surprised her greatly. They asked if Tiara was the elf who had saved him. Tiara recalled the past, saying she had indeed saved an injured cub when she was young, and now she realized how similar they looked. But that was over a century ago. Shiny then suggested, "Why don't I transfer the ownership of Wayme to you, Tiara?" Shin wondered if that was possible, and Sheeny explained, there won't be any problem as long as both parties agree. I'll dissolve the contract between us so you can create a new one with him. We then see everyone standing before Waymead. Shiny began dissolving the contract, placing her hands on Wayme and saying, "Let there be light wherever you go." Suddenly a flash occurred, and the mark on Sheeny's arm disappeared, along with the bond to Waymead. Sheeny then called Tiara forward. Tiara approached Waymead, placed her hands on him and said, "Walking with you is my desire." Another flash of light appeared, and a circular mark materialized on both Tiara's and Waymead's arms. Suddenly, Tiara fainted, but Shin caught her and asked if she was all right. She assured him she just needed some rest. The scene then shifted to Shin sitting with Shiny. He asked if she allowed Tiara to take Waymead so he could protect her. Shiny confirmed, saying, "We can't always be by Tiara's side. She'll feel more secure with Waymead when she chooses her own path." Shin noted that now that Tiara had a contract with Waymead, she could summon him whenever she needed, and that they could rely on her. He thanked Sheeny, saying he would turn to her whenever he was in real trouble. Shiny thanked him in return for his trust. In the morning, our heroes are on the carriage in the forest. Sheeny informs them that they are southeast of Farnid, right on the edge of the Rawa forest. Suddenly, a man and a girl appear. Shiny greets them and asks them to take them to Gerard. Shin uses his magic to hide the carriage and shrink the dragon, and they continue on their way to the mansion. As they walk, Shin looks at Sheeny and asks about the two new arrivals. Shiny explains that they are Gerard's grandchildren. They reach the house, and Shin and his friends enter to find Gerard sitting with his guards. Shin and his friends sit in front of Gerard, who then says, "Hello, sir. I did not expect to see you again in this life." And with that, our episode ends. To follow the upcoming episodes, please subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell to stay updated with all the latest releases.